Hi, this is Professor Ellis with Week 14 of Specialized Communications for Technology Students, English 1133 OL 96, Fall 2021. I want to welcome you all to this penultimate lecture. This will be meaning the next to the last. I hope everybody's doing well, that you're healthy, that you're getting plenty of rest, you're eating right, you're doing all the things that you can to maintain your health and your energy to get through this critical last stage of the semester. And so, with all that in mind, let's dive right into what we need to talk about during today's class. But first, I do want to remind you all about my contact information. Especially since I've heard from so few of you during the semester. I understand there's a lot going on, but you do need to reach out to me so we can talk if, especially now that we're at the very end stage of the semester. I'm recording this on December 5th, and the last day that I can receive any work in the class is Tuesday, December 21st. So again, my email address is jls@citytech.cuny.edu. You can email me, I'll get back to you right away. And remember, I have office hours on Wednesdays from 3 to 5 p.m. On Google Hangouts. There's a link on the left-hand side of our OpenLab course site and also at the top of our syllabus on the OpenLab course site. Now, if you can't meet with me on Wednesdays between 3 and 5 and you do want to talk, just send me an email letting me know what your availability is, which will minimize how many times we have to email back and forth to set up an appointment. I'm happy to meet with you, but let's try to do this as efficiently as possible. Let me know what your availability is for like the next week, and then I'll find a time in my schedule that jives with yours, and I'll get back to you with when that day and time will be, and then remind you a link of the Google Hangout. Now, one thing also I do want to talk about before we get into the nuts and bolts of week 14 is that for some students in the class that haven't been doing work up to this point, one thing that we can talk about over email and also during office hours is what options you have for the end of the semester. One of the things I do want to highly recommend for students that haven't participated, haven't done any work, or done very little work, especially not the major projects, you probably ought to consider withdrawal from the class. The practical reality of that is it will give you a W on your transcript, but it won't enter into your grade in the class or your GPA, your cumulative GPA, which can be a good thing. I mean, it's not ideal, but it's better than me just giving you an F in the class. But again, this is why I need to talk with some folks in the class, so you do need to reach out to me via email or in office hours so that we can talk about this, because I do want to also establish now, I haven't had anybody ask me, thankfully, but one of the things to keep in mind is that I won't be issuing any incompletes unless it's a student who has been doing work and some terrible tragedy has befallen them, or some life-altering family emergency kind of situation. Incompletes are not a way to just simply continue the class until you either complete it or not. Incompletes are for very specific circumstances when someone is in dire straits. Not having done the work up to this point in the semester doesn't qualify for an incomplete. So bear that all in mind. I mean, the folks that this actually applies to may or may not even be watching these lectures, so I'll just leave it there as a reminder in the event that perhaps they do watch the lecture this week. Now, for everybody else that's participating, taking part in the class, let's do a quick review and then get into this week's material. So last week, I reminded you about the student evaluation of teaching, the set emails that you should have received. Make sure you fill those out by December 10th. Okay, that's the cutoff date. I need that data about the class. I appreciate it. It's extremely helpful in the way that I'm able to think about and reflect on the way that I teach and make my classes better. So please take the time to fill out your student evaluation of teaching surveys, not just for my class, but for all of your classes. You'll have a separate email from that I showed you last week for all of your classes. So there'll be a separate email for each class. So you have to click on Start Survey and fill out that survey for each one. And remember, not just the bubble in options. The written feedback is what's really useful to us professors. So please take the time to do that. Then in terms of our class content, last week I talked about the overall layout of the technical report, what it ought to look like. Talked about Google Docs, and we're going to be returning to that today. For the weekly writing assignment, I asked for a draft of your survey or discussion section, depending on what kind of research report you were writing, in memo format. Just keep in mind, memo format just means that you got the memo block at the top, to, from, date, subject, and then your memo should begin with a sentence or two describing the purpose of the memo, and then after that is where you would just copy and paste the work that you've been doing on your research report in this particular section that I asked for. And again, that's just to show me that you're doing the work, you're demonstrating that you know how to write a memo, and of course any of that writing that you include in this memo is writing that's going to be going into your major project. So it's not placing an undue burden on you. It's a way of keeping me appraised of the work that you're doing while you're moving ahead with the major project. And then of course the homework was to continue your research, continue working on the research report. So this week we're going to talk about the research presentation, which is a big chunk of your grade that's based on your research report. We're going to go over submitting your report and presentation on OpenLab. I'm going to guide you through how to do that. Then for the weekly writing assignment, just to go ahead and describe it now, I would like you to post a comment to this week's weekly writing assignment post on OpenLab. Post a comment in memo format. So again, memo header, one or two sentences describing what it is, and I'll want you to copy and paste your script for your research presentation, which I'm going to talk about today. And then your homework is to continue work on the report and presentation, getting that ready to turn in. So let's take a look at this research presentation first. So if I go over to our syllabus, so here I am on our OpenLab site. I've clicked on Syllabus on the menu on the left, and then let's go down to Project 3, Research Presentations, 20% of your grade. Now, you will have already done the heavy lifting for this by having written the research report, because the research presentation is simply based on the research report that you're doing for Project 2, which is 30% of your grade. Now, for Project 3, research presentation, again, is 20% of your grade. And let's read through this. After completing your research paper, you will have an opportunity to turn it into a 5-minute oral presentation supported by a PowerPoint slideshow. And I'm saying PowerPoint slideshow here, but I would really recommend just using Google Slides, and I'll show you how to use that today. But you can choose to use PowerPoint or Google Slides, doesn't matter, as long as you are using some kind of slide deck software to give the visual anchor for your presentation. That's basically your background, what people would see projected on a screen when you're in person, or what you see right now on the bigger parts of our screen here with my browser window that I'm sharing with you. Your PowerPoint slideshow should balance text with images, again thinking about woven, written, oral, visual, electronic, nonverbal, like how they work together to make your communication stronger. All images in your presentation must be made and or taken by you. I want to really stress that. For some reason, some students either don't hear that or selectively choose not to, but Just like your research report, the writing that you do on it is your own writing. You are quoting and citing some things from other sources. But as far as any images that you're going to include in your research presentation, they have to be made by you. If you want to include like a picture, you have to be the one taking that photograph. If you need to illustrate something, you draw it. And the thing is, I'm not going to be grading you on the aesthetics, meaning the artistic ability that you demonstrate with your photograph, your drawing, your illustration, etc. What I'm looking for is your intentionality, the choices that you make about how you compose and create the image, just the same way that I'm thinking about the way that you have intentionality demonstrated with the way that you choose words, string them together into sentences and into paragraphs and into sections and then complete documents. It's the exact same thing, except instead of thinking about intentionality with words, we're looking at intentionality of images. So again, all the images have to be by you, and if you're not able to take a photo or create a drawing of the thing itself, do something that's representative. I have had examples where students would think of how to take a photo of street signs or building signs or even images that they just happenstance happen to see in the city that might not be the thing itself that you're actually talking about, but is there some sort of connection that you can incorporate into what you say to allow the audience to think about how this thing you're showing has some sort of material connection or illustrate some aspect of what it is you're saying in your presentation. Now, your presentation must be recorded and hosted online for easy embedding on OpenLab/WordPress, which is what OpenLab is based on. And as I've mentioned earlier in the semester, one of my big concerns is making sure that you're getting some practical experience in our class using real-world technologies that you can mention on your resumes and in your job application letters that you would not be able to do if we were doing all this on Blackboard. Because OpenLab is based on WordPress, you're going to be able to make claims that you know how to publish content on WordPress. You're going to be able to say that you know how to publish content on YouTube. All of these things come from these projects. If you follow the directions and you do all of the requirements for the projects, you will be able to make those kinds of claims. So in a nutshell, this is Project 3. Again, it is based on your research-based technical report. Now, one thing I should point out to you is that your technical report is 1,500 to 2,000 words. So I mean, it's a pretty big document, and there's no way that you can read that document aloud in 5 minutes, unless of course maybe you're an auctioneer. But then the problem is no one will be able to understand what the hell you're saying. The goal with the research presentation is to summarize what you have written in your research-based technical report in a much more concise manner in your research presentation. You're going to be communicating the main ideas, maybe some interesting anecdotes from your research, particular things that you found in your research that may highlight or illustrate a larger point that you're trying to make in your technical report. So 5 minutes is basically about 2 pages double spaced of reading. So if we were to write out 2 pages of text double spaced, that would take about 5 minutes to read, based on the idea that 1 page double spaced takes about 2 to 2.5 minutes to read. If you read it with a slow, not too slow, but a conscientious and mindful cadence to help people follow and understand what you're saying without saying it too quickly that they are unable to follow each word. And that's why in today's class we're going to talk about a script that you're going to write based on your research report, so that you're able to stick the landing on that 5 minutes for your oral presentation. And it's important to bear in mind, when you're in the workplace, you're going to be having requirements placed on you with the types of deliverables that you make. I've already talked before about how many times you're going to have word count requirements, because based on whatever deliverable your company may be producing, like say, a manual or brochure or website, whoever's laying out that document has already decided that this space for this topic is going to have 250 words of content go into it. This section will have 500 words of content to go into it. And so you have to stick close to those requirements in order to make the documents look right once that content is added to whatever part of the document you've been tasked with contributing to. Similarly, with professional presentations, there's often going to be time limits imposed on you whenever you give a presentation. Part of this may be that if you're giving a presentation at your business, they may have several individuals or teams all giving presentations in a given meeting. That meeting is going to have like a length of time devoted to it. And so if you go over your allotment of time, well, a few things could happen. One is they may cut you off and you don't get to finish. They may let you go on, but then you're going to be taking time away from the other people that will be going after you, and then you've suddenly made some enemies for yourself in the workplace. Or if you're giving a presentation professionally, like at a conference or a trade show, usually the time limits are strictly adhered to, meaning they'll cut your mic if you start to go over. And so it's important to get in the practice of practicing and building into your presentations things to help you always stick the time that you've been allotted for the presentation and not go over. And of course, if they say you have 5 minutes, you should use the whole 5 minutes. You don't want to have a presentation that's only 2 minutes long, you do the mic drop thinking that's a good thing, because you've more than likely left out some important details from not using up those extra 3 minutes that you had. So you want to use the time that's allowed, but you definitely never want to go over. All right, so we went over what's on the syllabus for the research presentation, and again, that's worth 20% of your grade. So the research presentation is composed of these 3 parts that you see on the screen, plus there's the 4th component. So actually we could say, consists of these parts, not 3 parts. My bad. So first off, you need to write a written speech that summarizes your research report. This is going to be what you read, or you can also memorize it, but for the purposes of our project, I'm perfectly fine with you reading the script aloud like you have your paper in front of you while you're delivering your presentation. But you'll write out that script that summarizes your research. And as a part of the script, you should also include at the very beginning of it information such as introducing yourself, saying what your major and what your affiliation is. When I say affiliation, that means where you go to school. In this case, that would be City Tech. You could be more professional and say that, for example, you are a professional and technical Bachelor of Science student at the New York City College of Technology, which is a part of CUNY. That'd be fine. And then you'll want to say what your presentation is about. So you'd say then something to the effect, today I would like to tell you more about this topic, this problem, whatever it is that you've written your technical research report about. That will be what you want to use as the introduction for your presentation. You want to let your audience know what you're going to be talking with them about. Now, after that, just like we've talked about before with your writing your research report, you need to have a roadmap. Give your audience a little bit of a cue about what to expect in the rest of your presentation. You only have to write one sentence, and you might even include the points from that sentence on a slide on your presentation we're going to get to next, in which you say, in the presentation, I'm going to talk about this first, that second, and this other thing third. That way, your audience will have a better idea about what's coming up, what order it's going to be coming up in, and to kind of mentally understand where they're at in your presentation as you deliver it. These things are scaffolding to help your audience better engage and understand what it is you're saying and how you're delivering that information to them. Now you see here I say topic sentence trick. So just like I'd mentioned before with writing an abstract, you can use the topic sentence trick to help write your script. So like the very first paragraph of your script needs to be where you introduce yourself, say what the presentation is about, and give that roadmap. After that is where the topic sentence trick comes in. You go back to your research report and take out those first sentences of each paragraph, because if you've written good topic sentences, you can use those as a guide to help you write out a summary, like what are the main ideas of your research report. Now, the thing is, with actually saying that aloud, you're probably going to find you're going to have to do some heavy editing to make it sound like you're not a robot talking, going like from one point to the next without like any kind of connection. So the topic sentence trick isn't a requirement. I'm just saying it as a way to maybe help you write your script for the presentation. But you can similarly simply think about what you've written in your research report, how you've organized it, what are the main sections, and then begin writing a couple of sentences about each section of your research report to create your script. Also perfectly fine. Okay, so I'm just trying to give you some ideas that you can try out, or if you're already comfortable with writing something like this, if you've delivered other types of presentations before, you go with what works. These things that I'm asking you to do, I won't see. But what I will see is whether you have a successful presentation or not. If you do these things, I guarantee you're going to have a stronger presentation than if you don't. So, again, the final deliverable is what I'm looking at in terms of giving you a grade. The scaffolding work is meant to help improve the final product so you get the best grade possible. So you got the script. That's one thing you have to do to give a good presentation. The second thing is you need to have a visual component that anchors what it is you have to say. Here I suggest using Google Slides to create your presentation like I use. This is Google Slides that I'm using here. You could also use PowerPoint by Microsoft. You could also use Apple Keynote would also be fine. There's also a presentation component built into LibreOffice. Any of these are fine to use, whatever you're most comfortable with. All of them will work with the way that I'm going to suggest for you creating the video recording of your presentation. So use what works, but since you're already using Google Docs, I would suggest just sticking with it and using Google Slides. It's very easy to use. Now your presentation needs to include words and images, again, made by you, that helps anchor your speech. And as you can see with all these presentations that I've given you, which are our lectures, I always use this presentation software to help anchor the things that I'm talking. Like I'm always like this little talking head down here, and then behind me you see these words, sometimes images, that support and connect to what it is I'm teaching you in each lecture. Similarly, you will want to do the same thing with your oral presentation. You're going to be speaking down here like in like a little bubble, and then behind you you're going to have your presentation on the screen that you can then use your mouse to click through or to use your arrow or space keys to move through, depending on what controls you have set up with your software. Now, so you first want to create a script, then you want to create your slide presentation, okay? After you've done that, you're ready to record, because you're going to need to record it so I can actually see your presentation, and I'm going to tell you how you're going to be using that to turn it in with your research report together, okay? We're going to get to that in a minute. So you've got your script, you got your presentation, then find a quiet corner where you can put it together, where you can record yourself. And you'll want to create a video recording of your presentation with yourself in frame, like I am here, and your presentation behind you. Now, what I would recommend is simply using a free Zoom account. So like here I got Zoom on the screen. And you're probably thinking like, well, Professor Ellis, that's for talking to other people. How am I supposed to use that? Well, one cool thing about Zoom is you can create a meeting where you're the only person there. And within that meeting, you can share your screen so that you share your browser window or your PowerPoint screen, etc., so that it'll be in the background and you are showing yourself, the little video guy down here, in frame. And then Zoom has a built-in recording feature, so it'll capture everything and save it as an MP4 video that you'll then be able to upload to YouTube as a public video that you can get a link for turning in your project, okay? Now, what I'll do is I'm going to give you some links at the bottom of this week's lecture on our OpenLab site that show you how to use Zoom for doing this. Like this is a great set of instructions from Reed College that guide you through how to do that. I found a page in the Zoom Help Center that shows you where to find your video recording, depending on whether you're on Windows, Mac, or Linux. And let's see, also help with uploading videos on the YouTube help site. If you've never done that before. Because you already have a Google account with using Google Docs, you'll also be able to use that to upload video on YouTube because Google owns YouTube. Alright, so those things are going to be things you'll want to look at in order to use as reference if you've never done this before. Now, in addition to like these things that I'm suggesting you do, you can also do other things as far as creating your presentation video. One popular way that also has a free component is the software called Screencast-O-Matic. And with this, you're able to capture your screen, have like a little video of yourself on top of what's on your screen, so that you can give your presentation and record yourself in front of your presentation as you're delivering your script. Saves a video file, you can upload the video to YouTube. You can see there's a lot of things trying to get you to buy stuff, but just for the basic version of Screencast-O-Matic, it'll do everything that you want for free. Similarly with Zoom, you don't have to pay for anything. The free Zoom account will let you do everything I just described for creating a meeting, having yourself share your screen, and then delivering your video. Now, also to help you with developing your script and thinking about what you should and should not do in your presentation, I'm going to assign some reading this week. First is this section on oral presentations in David McMurray's technical writing textbook, which you're already familiar with. He has a lot of great advice about how to think and plan your presentation, as well as how to think about what you need to say and why you would say certain things to help your audience better understand what you're talking about. So this is going to be a required reading for this week. I'm also going to assign this video that I normally would show my class when we meet in person by the comedian Don McMillan. It's called Life After Death by PowerPoint. And in this comedy routine, it's only 10 minutes, a little less than 10 minutes long, he goes over all of the different faux pas, all of the mistakes that people make when trying to give professional presentations. So most of the things that he shows you in that video you don't want to do. And so I think it's important to know as much about what you should do as to see examples of what you should not do, which is why I'm also including this on the required reading for this week to help you prepare for doing your presentation. So to think about what you need to do for the research presentation, you need to first write a script. I said here 2.5 pages. That you don't. I think 2 pages, double spaced, should be about 5 minutes. Okay, so about 2 pages double spaced should be enough. And of course, you should time yourself when you're practicing your script. I mean, you just go into your phone and use your stopwatch app to time yourself to see if you're hitting that 5-minute mark or not. If you're 2 under, well, add some language. What are some more details you can add in? If you're going over, think about what you can pull out, or maybe there may be sections where you can say less, or maybe you should speed up, for those sections in order to buy up that time. But make sure, though, you don't speak too quickly. It's very, it usually happens when someone's not used to giving presentations, that they can speak too quickly and run through material, which does save time, but your audience is less likely to be able to understand everything you say. So I would try to caution you against speeding up portions of your presentation and work on keeping the word count tight, and then reading in a more relaxed, consistent, but not a monotone. I mean, you do want to use your natural voice and inflection and cadence, but just don't go too fast that you lose your audience. So you write a script, you create a Google Slides presentation to anchor your speech, and again, for Google Slides, this is Google Slides here. I started my slideshow so that I could display it for you all as we're going through this material. I have these individual slides on the side, and basically I'm clicking through them when I have the presentation presented on the screen. Now, I'll also include under the lecture this week links to basics on using Google Slides, on using Microsoft PowerPoint, but I'll also direct you all toward yes. So as I mentioned before, earlier this semester, LinkedIn Learning, which you can access through the New York Public Library's website, and I know that some folks had trouble after they created online accounts with accessing it. So you can try again to see if you're able to access it. If not, I highly recommend you swinging by a New York Public Library branch and getting your account approved so that you can access the databases. I'm sure that if you go in and talk to someone, it should be something that they can take care of and fix so that you're able to access this, that every normal card holding patron of the New York Public Library can access. But what's great about LinkedIn Learning, as opposed to, and I don't want to sell it too short, the things that you can find on YouTube to help you with every aspect of creating your presentation. There's videos on YouTube for how to make a presentation using Google Slides, how to make a presentation with Microsoft PowerPoint, etc. There's also lessons on screencasting, which is what you're doing whenever you are recording your screen and yourself in video into a video file. Okay, and so there's a lot of material just freely available that you can find on YouTube. But what's great about what's on LinkedIn Learning, which you have access to with your library card through the New York Public Library, is the higher quality instruction that's not interfered with advertising, where no one is trying to sell you anything. They're trying to teach you how to use the software and achieve the deliverables that you're trying to create. And so I just did a search for screencasting earlier, and there's a course on producing screencast videos on a PC. There's a video just explaining what screencasting is. Another lesson on creating screencasts, creating screen capture training, becoming an instructional developer, which is probably too specialized for what we're doing. But here's a video on PowerPoint and recorded screencasting. So there's a lot of good stuff on here that you can access and learn some of the basics of this stuff that you need to do for Project 3. But also just going back to the basics of it, Google Slides. So if you're not that familiar with how Google Slides work, there's a course about how to use Google Slides. It's an hour and 4 minutes long, but you don't have to watch the whole thing. You can skip around and just see the parts that you need help with. Similarly, I can type in PowerPoint. Now, here you see that there are lessons on Master Microsoft PowerPoint. That would be like teaching you everything that you would ever want to know about PowerPoint. It's 11 hours long. PowerPoint Essential Training, that sounds more useful to you all if you're just needing the basics of how to use it. And again, it shows here it's 2 hours 37 minutes long, but you don't have to watch the whole thing. You can skip around just to the parts that you need help with. Okay, so these are resources that you have to rely on to know how to use some of this software, which I'm sure you've already been exposed to in other classes in your personal life. But if there's any questions about how to accomplish X task or X thing that you want to do, that's where LinkedIn Learning, using YouTube, doing Google searches can come in handy, because there's a wealth of information out there that you just need to reach out and look for. Oh, one important thing that I should show you. Let's see. Technical writing. So this is from my other class that I'm teaching right now, but I think this slide, I forgot to copy this over into ours. It's actually, I'm going to copy it right now. Go back into our specialized communications, click right there. Do not link. All right. So if you use Google Slides, one of the things that you'll want to do before you actually begin recording your presentation. So you've already got Zoom open. So Zoom's open. You got that in the background somewhere. And then on your web browser, where you have your Google Slide presentation open, you'll want to click on Start Slideshow. Now when you do that, your presentation is going to take over your whole screen. It's going to cover Zoom and everything. You're going to be like, OMG, what's going on? Well, what you do is you take your mouse and you want to go to the bottom left corner of your screen. You don't click anywhere yet, just move it around and you're going to see this little guy pop up. Then you click on these three little dots here and it gives you these options. And you want to click on Exit Full Screen. Or you can just simply press Control-Shift-F. But just click Exit Full Screen. And what that does is it's going to take your slideshow and make it just the size of your web browser window. Just like what you see here. You can see the edges of what I'm recording. That would be the edges of your browser window. And you're thinking, okay, well, that's great, Professor Ellis. Why do I need to do that? Because when you are using Zoom to record your presentation, you've gone into Zoom, you've started a new meeting, you're the only person there, you're going to be seeing a screen very similar to this. You might look just as crazy-eyed as I am there. And you want to click on Share Screen, this button right here. And it's going to give you options. You can share your whole screen, which I don't want you to do, but you can also choose applications. And you choose your browser application so that it's going to make that the background here. And then you will see a little smaller image of yourself imposed on top of your presentation. Now all this is included in this guide that I'll be linking to. So you'll have like step-by-step instructions on how to set this up. But I just wanted to briefly talk you through what that will be like. And but actually, one thing to remember is after you got everything set up, you shared screen, you're ready to record, don't forget to press this icon here that says record. And then once you've completed your presentation, click it again to stop recording, and then click End to end the meeting. Once you've done that, you'll want to go into your Documents folder, and then inside of Documents you're going to find a folder called Zoom. And inside the Zoom folder will be the MP4 video file that you need to then upload to YouTube. Now, like I said before, I'm going to give you a link that gives you help with uploading videos to YouTube. But just to show you very briefly, here I am on YouTube. You can see that I'm logged into my account. And there's this icon right here for Create. You click that, and there's two options. You can go live, which you don't want to do for this assignment. You want to upload a video. You click that. And then it brings up this window. And you can drag and drop video files in this space to begin uploading, or you can click Select Files. Either way, and then navigate to your Documents, Zoom, and then find the MP4 file of your video. It'll upload, and you'll see that it's going to ask you questions about like what do you want to title it, description, and just follow the screens. There's going to be a screen of information you fill out. You hit Next. It's going to ask you some more questions. Most of these things just leave default. You don't have to change any of them. The only thing that you really need to change is once you get to the last screen before you actually publish the video, is there's an option you have to choose, and that's like what kind of video is it? And you want to choose public. That way you'll be able to share it on our OpenLab site, because if you don't, then it's the link might not work. So choose public and then click publish. It'll run some checks to make sure there's no copyright material in your video, no background music. You don't want any of that because that'll get flagged for copyright as a copyright violation, unless of course it's music that you made yourself, like you created, orchestrated, etc. And then once it gets published, then we get into this next stuff in today's lecture, which is submitting project 2 and 3. So you've written your research report in Google Docs. You have uploaded your presentation video to YouTube. Okay, so these things are done. Now you need to turn them in on our OpenLab site so that I can grade them and give you credit for that hard work that you've done. To do that, and I'll just talk through these things and then we'll go over to OpenLab and see how all this works. So for submitting project 2 and 3, the very first thing you want to do is create a new post on our OpenLab site. You know, whenever I add the weekly lecture, the weekly writing assignment, different announcements I've made, all of those are posts. And you're going to make your own post on our OpenLab site to turn in project 2 and 3 together. Now, after you start creating your post, the first thing you're going to see is to choose a category over on the right-hand side. And the category I want you to choose is research report. Then over on the left, there's a big box for title. And you click in there, and I want you to title this post Research Report on X, like whatever it is that your research report is about, by, and then write your first and last name. That way it's going to show research report on something, whatever it is, by, and then your first and last name. Now, underneath the title is the content area, where if you think of like a post on OpenLab, there's always a title for the post, like where I say like lecture, week 14. Underneath it is the content area. You click in there, and that's where you first copy and paste the link to your YouTube video into that area. Now, what's great about WordPress is that it's going to detect that it's a YouTube video, and it will automatically embed it so that you will see your link turn into the video square. So it'll look just like whenever I create the lecture post each week. How the lecture is embedded on our WordPress OpenLab site, yours will look just like that, where your video is at the top of your post. After you've copy and pasted that link and then you see the box appear for your video, click underneath your video and then write 2 or 3 sentences in your own words describing what your report is about, what your research report is about. And then I want you to conclude that little paragraph with this sentence: "You may read my report online here, period." Now, leave that page open, okay? And then in another tab, go back to your Google Doc for your research report. And you'll want to get the shareable link for viewing it. I'm going to show you how to do this in a second. Then return to OpenLab where you have your post that you're writing. Highlight the word "here." Look above that and there's like some tools, just like a word processor toolbar. And one of them looks like a little chain link. That's for links to other websites. You click that icon, paste your link in the little box that appears, and then click the little return arrow, the arrow that's going like a little loop. Click that, and that's going to make the word "here" become a link to your research report Google Doc. After you've done that, click Publish in the upper right-hand corner. It's going to bring up another Publish icon. Click that, and then wait a second, and you'll get a confirmation that your post is then published on our OpenLab site. Now, so why don't we take a look at all these different parts that are going into this. So I need to have that open. I'm going to go back into Google Drive, go into my Specialized Communications folder. And we'll work from the sample research report Google Doc. We'll pretend this is my research report. And let's see, so we got that. To then pop. All right, so we're going to have this as my, oops. All right, so I have here our OpenLab site. I'm logged in. I have here my Google Doc that I want to use for my research report. And then here I have my YouTube video of my presentation. We'll say this is my presentation video. And you can see that there's a link up here, www.youtube.com/watch?v equals video equals, and then gives the special identifier number for my video. So we got all that up there. All right. So to publish and submit your project 2 and 3 work so that I can grade it, this is what you do. So after you've logged into OpenLab and you've navigated to our OpenLab course site, you want to mouse over this icon, a little plus, and choose Post. And you can see here that it brings up this composition window. You see it says Add Title, mentioned before. You see here this smaller text area, that's where you actually do your writing and post your video. But the first thing I want you to do before you do anything else is look over here on the right hand side. And we want to scroll down to Categories. First thing you want to do is put a check next to Research Report. What that does is it categorizes your work as a research report and not as a lecture, not as an announcement, not as a weekly writing assignment. You want to categorize it as a research report. Okay, so do that first. Then click over and add title. And as I said on the slide, we'll say research report on X by first and last name. Looking around for ideas. Research report on, we'll say, NVIDIA GeForce RTX video cards by Jason Ellis. Okay, whatever your report is on, that's what you want to write there, and then by your first and last names. So just so there's no confusion, why don't I use a different name? Harry Seldon. Research report on psychohistory. There we go. Research report on psychohistory by Harry Seldon. Then after you've done that, you click here, and you can see it says type / to choose a block. You don't have to do anything, okay? Go back over to your YouTube video and copy this link. So copy the whole thing from the very end to HTTPS. Then go back over to OpenLab. You see the little cursor blinking there, and paste it. Now make sure you don't accidentally stay in the title area and paste that link, because that won't do anything. It'll post the link inside your title, and that's going to look weird, and it's not going to create this embedded video. So make sure you click into the content area before you paste your link. But after you paste the link, you see it just turns automatically into an embedded video. You don't have to do anything to embed your video into your post. After you do that, click underneath it, and now you can see that it's back to type / to choose a block. This is where you want to write a few sentences summarizing your research report. Think of this as a super short abstract. So just a few sentences. And then after you've written that very short summary of your research report, you'll want to go back to my guidelines here, and you can see I want you to have a sentence that says, you may read my report online here. Read my report online here. Okay? Now, we've got our abstract. We have that last sentence of the paragraph that I want you to add. So now we need to get a link to your research report. So I'm going to go back over to my Google Doc here. So I got my research report open, following all the guidelines that we discussed last week. And I want to click on Share, this icon in the upper right hand corner. Now you can see there's some options here. This top part is for sharing your work with an individual or group. We're not doing that. I want you to focus on this part here where you can get a link. Okay, that's very important. Now, don't copy the link yet. What we need to do is click this that says change to anyone with the link. What that means is anyone that has the link will be able to view your document. Right now, if you just copy the link without clicking this guy, then only you can read it. Nobody else will. I won't be able to, and therefore I won't be able to give you a grade. So make sure that you look down in this box here where it says Get Link, click Change to Anyone with the Link. You see this turns green where you have a link there. By default, it'll say anyone with the link. Leave this exactly like that is a viewer. That's the default. That's what we want. Then click on Copy Link. Then you can click Done. Go back over to OpenLab where you're composing your post. Double click on the word here. See how it's highlighted now. And then here is our link tool. So click Link. And you see this little box come up. Control V. That's going to put my link in there. You see the link is all copied in. And then click this to submit the link. This little return icon. And you see now here has a little underline, right? So if you don't see that underline, you know you didn't make the link right. So try again. And you can click on it and the link will pop up. A little preview of it will pop up if you can see that. So I know that my link works. That's good. And then I can click off of that and I'll go away. So I look over to make sure everything looks right. I got my title, I got my video, got my little abstract, I got my sentence, you may read my report online here, and I link to my report here. After that, we want to click Publish, and then click Publish again. You see it's publishing, and you see this is where you get confirmation. Research Report on Psychohistory by Harry Seldon is now live. Okay, that's good. Now, I want you to double check to make sure that your post is correct before you just walk away and think you're done, okay? To do that, you click here where it says English 1133 OL 96. That'll take us back to our OpenLab course site. Now, to find your work, just scroll down to Projects, click that little caret, and then click Research Report. Your research report, if you just turned it in, should be at the top of this list. The only one that's here right now is this sample one that we just did together. But you'll want to look and make sure your title looks good, that you see your video there, that you can click play and then it'll actually start playing. And then check that link to your research report. But now, one thing about this is you want to probably test this after logging out of Google Docs. Okay, because if you click that link and you're still logged in, that doesn't really tell you anything. Because if you're logged in, you click it and you can see it. You can see it because that's your account that made that document. Log out of Google Docs, come back here, and then click that link to make sure that anyone can look at it, that you don't have to be logged in. You see, I'm logged in right now, so that doesn't tell me anything. I got to log out to verify that link actually will open for anybody. You could ask a friend to do it. You could do it on a different computer that you're not logged in on if you don't want to log out. But just verify that does work, especially if you're turning this in like last minute, because there's not a lot of time for me to like try to track you down if some of this stuff doesn't work. It is your responsibility to verify these things work correctly for anyone, because for anyone means for me to be able to access it. Okay? Very important. All right, so that goes over the basics of turning in project 2 and 3. So remember from the syllabus that technically everything should be due by Wednesday, December 15th. That's the last day of class. I'll be just doing a wrap-up lecture for next week. But as I've said before, you have until Tuesday, December 21st to turn in all your work. So if you need that extra time, you do have it available, but the very last that I can receive anything is Tuesday, December 21st. After that, there are limits to what I can do to track someone down, because grades have to be put in right away after that. So it's, again, I just can't stress how important it is to try to get this work done, get it turned in as soon as you can, because that gives me more time to go over it, and if there's any problems, for me to reach out to you about it. But if you need that extra time, I've made it available because I'm trying to be as understanding as possible to give everybody an opportunity to show me their best work, to get the best grade you can get in the class. But just bear in mind that there is still this final deadline, Tuesday, December 21st, that only in the most extenuating circumstances or even the realm of possibility of a incomplete. So make sure you get the work in, because I have to be giving grades out. And if you, in all honesty, you look at what you still have to do in the class, which you can easily see by looking at the syllabus. I design a very clean-cut, easy-to-read syllabus that goes over the major projects in the class. You got the weekly writing assignments. You have the projects. I go over in the lectures how these things need to be turned in. So make sure that you are following my directions, which I've had students who have done that for the job application portfolio. But now I'm giving you new directions for how to turn in project 2 and 3. Those also have to be followed for you to get credit on those assignments. Think of those directions as like the bare minimum before a grade is given. You can't do some other weird stuff that I'm not giving approval for. You have to follow the directions, because again, with technical writing, which this class is a part of that discipline, there are requirements, there are instructions, there has to be precision in the way things are done. So make sure that you're paying attention to these lectures, taking notes, and following them to submit your work correctly, successfully, and then therefore get a grade for it. If anybody's got questions, please reach out to me. Email. There's no reason to suffer in silence. Just send me an email, jellis@citytech.cuny.edu. I got my office hours Wednesdays 3 to 5 p.m. or by appointment. With appointments, let me know what your availability is, for the next week, and then we'll figure out a time that works for both of our schedules. Look at the syllabus carefully. Review lectures. I mean, you can't imagine like the thought that goes into making sure I'm covering all the bases, all the possible problems you might encounter in the way that I design the lectures, the material that we go over. So if there's something that's been missed or there's something you need clarification on, reach out to me, and I'll help you with that. Okay? Beyond that, take care of yourselves. Make sure you're masking up, maintaining social distance, eating well, sleeping well, doing all the things you can to stay healthy to get through this semester. We're almost there. Let's get through it together. So good luck, and I'll talk with you all again real soon.